Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dream Leapers with Harriet Cole. I'm so happy to be with you today. We are going to be talking about Broadway today. We have a very special conversation with someone whose career I've been following for many, many years. I started my career at Essence Magazine in the 80s. Yes, it was that far back. And this man was on the scene, making an incredible impression. He is the consummate performer, a voice that is just golden, let's just say, an incredible actor. And he's here to talk to us about his career and a very special project that he's a founding member of. So let me tell you about him. Our guest this week is Emmy, Grammy, Tony, and SAG Awards nominee, Norm Lewis. Yeah, you know who it is. Norm is renowned for his exceptional singing talent and for his outstanding performances on stage and in films such as Spike Lee's critically acclaimed film, The Five Bloods, and the FX series Pose. Remember that? And most recently, in the West End in Love Never Dies, as well as the Tony Award-winning production of A Soldier's Play. Norm is also, and very important to share with you, a proud founding member of Black Theater United. Please join me in welcoming Norm Lewis. Hi, Norm.
Hello, how are you?
Excellent. And like I said, I've been following you for a long time. You've been doing your thing at a level of excellence that we all appreciate. How did you get started in the world of performance?
Wow. Well, I think as a lot of Black people specifically in church, and it was my grandfather was a preacher. My dad was the chairman of the deacon board. So I was in church all the time. I think we only probably had Saturdays off. I don't know. I can't remember now. But when I joined the church, or when I became a member of the church at age 9 and gave my life to Jesus, I had to confess that.
At age 9?
Yeah, because come on, it was a little kind of late. It was, especially in my household. But I joined, it was kind of like a rite of passage. And I did all of the church activities, and I got into the choir and I sang. I didn't know I could sing. It was just making a joyful noise. And one of those things that you just did, I was in the Sunbeam Choir. Remember the Sunbeam Choir as the little kid? And then you progressed to the young adults, and then you became an adult in the adult choir. But I just kind of followed that path. And in high school, I decided, instead of taking home economics, because that's what they put me in as an elective, I decided to go to, they say what?
They didn't put you in shop?
No, they didn't put me in shop. It was funny because, look, home economics is great, and I'm not begrudging cooking and sewing. I just didn't want to do it at 16 years old. And so I said, let me find something that's a little bit better, maybe easier to do, what I thought was easier. And it was the choir. And I went to the choir and auditioned for the choir director there. And he took me up and down scales, and he said, okay, you're a bass baritone, so I'll put you in that section. And it was the first time, it was halfway through my junior year. So they already knew the music. So I had all of these books of music that I had to learn, but it was the first time I'd ever heard that kind of music surrounding me. The only other singing I'd ever done was gospel music. So hearing classical, hearing Broadway, hearing American standards surrounding me was a different feeling. And it was like, oh, wow. So I wanted to know more. And that was my junior year. Then my senior year, I joined the dance choir. So I was, not anything like ballet or anything. We were just moving side to side. And
in unison, you were taught the movement. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so it was a lot of fun. And I got my first solo, and I got a lot of accolades for that. It's like, oh, you sang pretty well. So that's how I gained my love of music. And that's how I kind of.
And where did you grow up, Norm?
I grew up in a small town called Eatonville, Florida, right outside of Orlando.
Oh, isn't that where?
Come on.
Yes. And why am I blanking? Oh my God, I can't even believe myself. So the wonderful Zora Neale Hurston. I'm like, come on. Yes. My brain was freezing she's from there, right?
Yeah. In fact, Their Eyes Were Watching God talks about Eatonville.
Yes. No,
Yeah.
I read that book in college. I went to Howard University, and that was the beginning of my exposure to the breadth of Black literature.
Right.
Howard, my parents had a few things, but Howard did it. But I learned about Eatonville and her because that was one of the first books I read. Their Eyes Were Watching God.
Yeah.
Wow. Even though beautiful town, a town with history.
Yeah, yeah. It's the oldest Black chartered municipality in the United States. So there are older Black communities, but we are the first to charter the city as an autonomy.
So as a young person growing up in a Black town in the South, still at a certain time, what were the challenges and what were the racial tensions that existed that you were aware of as a kid?
It's so funny. I didn't feel any racial tension at all because, we were surrounded by people that looked like us and stuff. What it was, the community, you went to church together, you went to school together, you played ball together, you played, football together. So, of course, we definitely had white friends and things like that. But it was this amazing community that I just remember my parents were giving permission to neighbors. If they saw me do something wrong, they could discipline me, or they would go and say, I'm going to tell your mama, I'm going to tell your daddy. And, so you kind of, you looked out at that saying, it takes a village. It really does. And I still, to this day, some of them, a lot of them have passed on. My parents have passed on, but I still go back and say, hi, Mrs. Jones, or hi, Mrs. Young, so.
The way my mother used to say it was she had eyes in the back of her head.
Right.
And she really did, because if we did anything, by the time we got home, she already knew. Right. She was ready.
Right. My mom was a teacher. And so I went to the school where she taught. She picked all of my in elementary school. And so she picked all of my teachers. And she would grab me by the hand on the first day and say, hey, listen, I want him to have a good year. If he gets out of line, I want you to, can I do a little curse word on him?
No, you can't curse, but you can say that you can begin it.
Okay. She said, if he gets out of line, I want you to beat his and tell me, because I'm going to beat his. And then she would say, have a good year.
I love that. Love and discipline all combined. And by the way, it really does work. So when you finished high school, what was the next step on your journey?
I wasn't sure I wanted to go to college. I wasn't quite sure. Then I was offered a scholarship to a community college in Lake City, Florida, which is about 2.5 hours away. And they had dorms and they had things, places like that. So I was like, okay, they gave me a scholarship. Let me just go and take some classes. And that's when I actually found my love of theater. And I started doing some theater there, but I was majoring in business. And so theater was like a side thing. So I would finish my business classes and then I would go and, sing in the choir, or I would get prepared for a play or something like that. That's when, after that, I went to a small school called Rollins College.
Okay. And did you study theater there?
No, I studied economics there. Yeah.
Okay. So this business and economics combined with theater sounds like a good idea, because a lot of times people who work in the arts, who can be amazing, don't have a sense of that anchor of, well, how do I make all of this make sense and make a life for myself in such a topsy-turvy world? Did it help you?
It did. The thing about it, I didn't think I was good enough. I liked theater. I liked singing. I didn't think I was good enough professionally, but it was just a nice little hobby to do. But I was definitely going to be, after college, I went and worked for a newspaper. Actually, it was kind of simultaneously until the last year. And I worked in the production office of the newspaper, which is basically, I just put this paper into the machine and it opened up and they would put the coupons in. Then I graduated to working in the marketing department for a few months. And then there was an opportunity to work in advertising, which was a great opportunity for me because I got to it was telephone sales at the beginning. People would call in and it was the classified section. And then I progressed to telemarketing and then outside sales.
And so when did the break come from hobby to, oh, maybe this little hobby I have could turn into something? Well,
I remember auditioning for Disney. I work, being that it was in Orlando, I would audition because I would hear about little things and say, oh, because they pay well and they give you great benefits and things like that. And I get to sing. So I would go and try out, and I auditioned for them like 7 times. And I would always get a call back, but then I would never get the gig. It's like, okay. But I would also, at night, they would have contests at different bars or different clubs. It was kind of like during that era of Star Search. You remember the show Star Search? They would have contests like that. Like you could win one week and then come back and win another week. And it would have to be like a 6-week thing. And if you won that, you could win $500. Sometimes it would be a one-night contest and you could win whatever.
Right.
I would win some, I'd lose some. It was just fun for me. But what really turned me around was there was one contest that I entered that I won. And then one of the judges was a producer, which I didn't know, producer for a cruise ship show. So after that contest, he came up to me and said, hey, I need someone like you in my show on a cruise. Would you like to do it? He told me the amount of money I'd make, the opportunities I would get, things like that. So I went back to my boss at it was the Orlando Sentinel, the newspaper. I went back to my boss and I said, hey, this opportunity came up. What do you think? And she was an artist as well. And she said, you don't want to be 85 years old saying coulda, woulda, shoulda. She said, go for it. If it doesn't work out, at least you tried. And then, you can come back.
Boss.
Yeah.
And the Orlando Sentinel was an African-American paper, right?
No, it was
is it their main paper?
It's a main paper, yeah.
Okay, so good that you had, the people in our lives who impact us the most, those people, I don't even know if you thought of her as a mentor, but just somebody who looked out for you.
Yeah. She definitely was. I would say she definitely was a mentor. We would talk about, she was very much into the church. At that time, I was still very much into the church. And we would talk about certain things, as far as morality and things like that. So we had a great connection. And so she knew that I loved singing and she'd seen me sing. And she was like, you know what, I think you should try it.
So you went on the cruise. And what was that like?
It was great. I was nervous. I was very green. I didn't know a lot of the technical aspects of what being a performer was. I just loved being on stage. And it was interesting. I was lucky enough to be in a cast of people who had been on Broadway or who were working actors who had done this. And I would ask questions and they loved that I was talented enough to be a part of their group. And I was in the show for about 4 months. I was on the cruise for about 4 months. And I had an option to go another 6 months because I was a replacement. The cast that I was working with had to go off because they had finished their contract and a new cast was coming in. So I opted not to. I said, I'm going to go back to school for 2 years, learn this craft of theater, and maybe in 2 years move to New York. And one of the guys in the show said, that's stupid. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was, I didn't know what I didn't know, but he actually told me some words that I'd never forgotten. He was like, all those people that, that went to the Royal Academy of fall, it doesn't matter. They know more dialogue than you. They know more whatever, but you have the talent. You can always learn in New York. You can take classes there. It's the place. It's the Mecca. I think you can do it. So he gave me encouragement. And he said some words, which I use a lot of when I talk to young people. When you go into an audition, people behind the desk have a problem. The director, the producer, they have a problem. And you walk in and you go, hi, I'm your answer.
Right.
And you might not solve that problem that day, but they might remember you. They hopefully will. And in fact, that's happened to me because they saw me at another audition and thought of me for another show. Or, you know what, you might not be the right person that day for them. You go and solve everybody's problem. So go to many auditions. Unless specific ask for blonde hair and blue eyes, I showed up. I would go, hey, what's up?
I'm the solution.
I'm the solution, yeah.
To solve your problem. Hey, everybody, we are talking to Norm Lewis. He is a dynamic performer, Broadway performer, actor, singer, the voice. I want you all to hear his voice. He was part of the cast of a soldier's play that I remember seeing just not long ago and just so incredible, like pre-COVID and post-COVID. It was pre-COVID. Right. That's how the world is now. And everyone, you are listening to Dream Leapers with Harriet Cole. It is an honor to have Norm Lewis with us today. So Norm, I skipped to Soldier's Play because that that was such a powerful performance. But we'll talk about that in a minute. We're talking about the beginning of your journey, which is so important. You know, people who come to hear the stories here on Dream Leapers are looking to make their own dreams come true. They're looking to hear other people's stories, and not to do what you do, but to do what they do. You know, how can I get more confidence in what I do? One of the things that is coming out so clearly from your story is great wisdom from other people, that they're kind of pouring wisdom into you as you are cultivating your talent. Right. There was one other thing that you said, that a thread that I want to elaborate on, about your faith and about morals, really about morals and values. Right. How did that anchor from your youth of morals and values impact your career as you get to New York, which is everything, and it's very easy to get lost? How did your foundation support you as you came to New York?
I would say the thing is that my parents instilled in me an amazing foundation of values, especially being in the church. It was like, you know, there's that discipline that you grow up with. There are certain things that you don't do on certain days, or you know, or you make sure that you are very aware of people's feelings, things like that. For me, the discipline was awesome coming here because, you know, I waited on tables, I bartended, I did a lot of things that actors do, you know, are you an actor, waiter. But I didn't go out afterwards and drink and talk about the people that I just waited on, because that was what a few of my friends did, and they got kind of lost, and some of them decided not to be in this business anymore. But I went home knowing that I had an audition the next day, or I had to study for whatever the class was or something like that. Because I could have been a waiter back in New York, in Orlando, you know what I mean? So I didn't come here to wait on tables. I came here to work, but I needed to supplement my income. So I think that was one of the main things. Also, having a business background, I was very innovative in a lot of the things that how I made money, and made sure that I was focused still on my mission to become an actor or a performer or whatever. So yeah, I would say that having that sense of, you know, a prayer is still a mainstay in my life. Meditation became a newer thing, but having that mindset, you have to kind of just focus on what you want and manifest what you want. So, you know, God gave me the gift. It's not mine, so I try to protect it. I try to do as much as I can for it. Sure. So that's the way I look at it. You know, there's that line from Spider-Man: with great power comes great responsibility. So I try to look at it that way.
Now, I didn't realize that was from Spider-Man. So now we have the attribution. I love that. So what was the first meaningful job that you had when you got to New York?
Meaningful job in the theater, or meaningful job period?
In the theater. Let's stick with the theater.
Well, it's funny because when I first moved here, I would say it took me about 2 weeks or almost under a month. I was auditioning for everything, and I got a job working in Connecticut, doing a show, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Ah, yes.
And so, but we rehearsed in New York City. We didn't rehearse in Connecticut. We rehearsed in New York City and then went to Connecticut, which was awesome for me because it validated that I could work. And
it was quick. By the way, just everybody listening, that you got a job within 4 weeks. Some people are here for a year and don't get a job.
Very blessed. And that's the thing. I'm always grateful. That's another thing. I'm always in a grateful mode. Even if I go into an audition and I don't get it, at least I did my best to get it. And if they didn't want me, that's another story. That's a whole nother thing. It's not up to me. But I called my mom. I'll never forget this. I had been making a nice salary in advertising and then on the cruise ship. But I get my first job in the ensemble of Joseph. And I was offered $150 a week. But I called my mom and I was crying on the phone, bawling. I got a job, Mom. You know, and so it was one of those things that just made me, it gave me validation, at least early.
And so here, just for context, with the advertising job and the cruise, Were those checks bigger?
Oh, a lot bigger.
No, so I just want context. $150 a week was not a lot of money in New York
Not a lot of
City.
money at all. But and even as a waiter, I was still making more. Money.
That's what I thought. So, but it was the precious check because it was for what you loved and wanted to do.
Yeah.
And how did your mom react?
Oh, she was happy. I mean, she was one of those people that wanted to support me, but was always kind of like, okay, we'll see how this works out. I'm here for you, but I just don't want you to be hurt if it doesn't work, that kind of thing. So that was the beginning. It really took her about 3 years to really go, okay, you are an actor. Because up until that point, I was doing gigs here and there, but could I pay my bills? Yes, but I was still paycheck to paycheck.
Well, and by the way, there are many professions that are paycheck to paycheck for a while in New York anyway, because it's so expensive to live in New York.
Right.
And also really understandable for parents to worry, my child is going to be an actor. What is that going to mean?
Right.
And so what was the big job that you had where your mom was like, oh my God, he's there. It's happening.
My first Broadway show. And that was The Who's Tommy. And she came up for opening night. And as soon as she saw it, I mean, I was still in the ensemble, but here I am on a Broadway stage.
Yes.
We go to, the after party, and she gets to meet Pete Townsend, and she gets to meet all these stars. I'm introducing her to stars that are coming to see the show. And so she's looking around. She's like, oh, I know him from TV. Oh, I know him from movies. Oh my God. And what was so funny, she would say things that just would make you laugh. And she called Pete Townsend. She's like, are you Mr. Who? Because he was from the group The Who.
Right.
You Mr. Who. And he loved that.
I bet he did. It's the sweetest thing when your parents get to see you shine, and then to have the extra dazzle of people that she knew. That's the wonder of New York City. Everybody's here, so you can easily be in the company of so-called celebrities, and then you also realize they're just people. But for your mom and your dad, it's like, yay! And so Broadway, I've talked to a lot of Broadway performers, and they talk about the grind. 8 shows a week. Live, you have to bring it. It is not like you can do 10 takes and you get the best one. It is in the moment. What was that like for you, especially that first Broadway performance?
Well, for me, it was, I have been lucky enough to play lead roles in some regional theaters, but it was a limited run, 2 months, 3 months at the most. So I didn't feel the full effect. It was just so exciting. I was younger then, the whole thing. And then when I finally made it to Broadway, it was like, oh, okay, this is 8 shows a week. I'm now in it for as long as the show can run. There was a few challenges because those old theaters, the filtration system wasn't necessarily that good. So sometimes there would be some sinus infections and, but not enough for you to call out because you didn't want to miss your paycheck. But also it was a living wage. That's another thing too. It was the first time I was making a living wage that not only could I pay my bills, but I could do other things and invest money and things like that. So it was different. Also coming from the church, and not necessarily being someone that went to school for theater, there was a big lesson there. When you're in church or in the church sort of system and you're singing in the choir, you don't know what's a warm up. I have no idea what a warm up is. You just go to church and you just hope and pray something comes out.
Right.
On that Sunday morning. This was more like, oh, wait a minute. Me. I gotta be disciplined enough to know what to do, have that muscle ready so I can do 8 shows a week.
And did you learn the warm-ups in school at all, or you learned it on the job?
A voice teacher. I found people who I admired in the show who had great voices, and they would tell me little techniques to do and stuff. So I would kind of follow suit and learned from them.
Who would you say have been your mentors since you came to New York?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I looked up to people like Andre DeShields and Ken Page. the definitely people that look like me who were on stage, and I'd either heard them on a recording or, seen them on television or something like that. Every time I would go see a show, I remember I went to see Les Miserables, and Terrence Mann was in the show, and I was like, oh my God. I was walking down the street one day, and I'm like, oh my God, that's that dude, that's Mr. Mann. And that's funny to say now, yeah, hey, Mr. Mann. But yeah, I got to know this person. I first went up to him and said, hey, I saw you in the show. I think you're fantastic. I also saw you in certain movies. I think you're amazing. And now we're friends, now we're buddies. So there have been different people who have come into my circle or I've admired maybe from afar, or maybe I've talked to and they've given me advice so I've had many different mentors.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's great. And it is part of the wonders of being in the city and being accessible to people, but also, like you described, paying attention, because you knew Mr. Mann's work. Right. You weren't just go, hi, but you spoke to him from a point of awareness and reverence for the craft and what he had done. I think that's important for people to know. Just being like a groupie or whatever is the worst. It's why do you celebrate someone? What is it about that person? That is what often opens doors. So let's talk about the Soldiers story. It was a Soldiers play. It was such a powerful production. How you got involved in that, what that meant for you.
Yeah, it's interesting because that was only my second play. I've only done 2 plays. I've been here 30 some odd years. I've only done 2 plays. All of the non-musical things that I've ever done have been on television or film. So to be asked to be a part of a play, a powerful play like that. I've known Kenny Leon for a long time, and we kept saying that we wanted to work with each other, and when the opportunity came about, he asked if I would be a part of this, and I jumped at the opportunity. I said, yes, absolutely. And, but it's a different skill set. It's the same skill set, but it's different because, when you're singing, dancing, and acting in a show, you are grounding yourself, you're warming up, you're doing all these other things to make sure that the voice is there. And, with this, you can still do those disciplines, but I could still not worry about if I have a cold that day or if I have a sinus infection. I can go and do a play. I can talk, Right. And so it's just knowing what you're going to do with all of those words without having to sing, if that makes sense.
Well, it's the subtlety of the craft is what you're talking about. And there's something to be said about going so deep into whatever that performance is, and understanding the difference between the output of singing and the output of acting and speaking.
It's the same. Again, it's the same discipline, but you're right. It's skewed just a little bit because there are times where I could be in a character like Porgy and acting and just getting into it, but then next thing you know, I have to sing a song.
Right.
Excuse me. And with the Soldiers play, I didn't have to do that. I just had to remember my words and make sure that I communicate with that person I was on stage with. And it was, again, I'm trying to think of a lot of the people's names that I worked with in the tour, but it was fantastic. We had such a great cast. The cities that we went to, we didn't know if people would resonate with the show. It was people kept saying thank you. People were crying, saying thank you so much for coming. So
that's beautiful. Yeah. Hey guys, we are here together on Dreamleapers with Harriet Cole, and we are talking with Norm Lewis. He is an Emmy, Grammy, Tony, and SAG Award nominee. He is known for his voice, and he's done more than his voice. He's done all the things that you do in the world of performance. You might remember him from Spike Lee's The Five Bloods and the FX series Pose, which was one of my favorite series. He also was part of the Tony Award winning production of A Soldier's Play, and we're so happy to have him here. the reason that we invited him here now, though, is because he is a founding member of Black Theater United. And this organization has been so important. It's one of the things when I ask people, what did you do during quarantine? What did you do during COVID? And there's a group of folks in the theater world who banded together and decided we need to have Broadway and the theater world treat Black folks better, be more inclusive. And Norm, I want to tell you, it's so interesting because I was working with the Broadway League before COVID, and they were waking up to this understanding. We have to do better.
Right.
We must do better. And we did some focus groups and some other activities to really honor the Black community inside and outside of Broadway better. And then COVID hit, and you guys came strong with Black Theater United, which I think is an incredibly powerful group. What is it? Who's part of it? And what is the intention of Black Theater United?
Wow. Okay. That's a loaded question.
It is.
Well, so, obviously we know what happened during COVID and being locked down. And then it also made people from whatever race you were or culture you came from, see what was going on with the different murders that were happening. And the one that I think that resonated with so many people was George Floyd. And so at that time, a lot of people, young mostly, felt compelled to say, okay, that happened. Let me tell you something else that happened in my neck of the woods, and the industry that we are in. And then we kept hearing all these voices saying the things that they were saying and feeling a certain way about it. And there was a lot of anger. There was a lot of hurt. So I know that they were looking to us, the OGs, we call ourselves the OGs, to say something. And I remember LaChance, the wonderful LaChance, put a tweet out there and said, hey, Broadway producers, did you hear these voices? What are you going to say? What are you going to do? And Audra McDonald saw that. They called each other, talked for a long time, and decided to call their friends. And there were several people. I forget the number of people that were on that Zoom. But we got on the Zoom and we just talked for hours. Mm-hmm. I think it was 4, maybe 5 hours that we all talked and expressed how we felt. And from that night, we decided to meet again, and we decided to create a group, a coalition, a whatever you want to call it, and try to figure out what we can do as a collective. We all had some sort of outreach and connections with people who were in power that we could say, listen, let's have a conversation because these voices are resonating. And there was even maybe a petition or something that went out. And I think we see you, white theater. And there were people pointing fingers. There were people doing this. And we felt, not that that's anything wrong with that, but we felt that we didn't want to do it that way. We felt like instead of doing this, let's say, hey, let us have a conversation. And you can be as opinionated as whatever you want, but let us do that. So we decided we should go a route where we could have some sort of substance. And we wanted to make this a 501c3 and go that route and have, some solidity. Well, I'm trying to think of the right word. To be solid.
Right. And as the name suggests, to be united.
To be united.
To be united.
Right.
I love the idea. We know when people point fingers, it doesn't work. People never like to have that finger pointed at them. No. To embrace is a way that works better. Quite frankly, it works better. And we were in a crisis point.
We were definitely in a crisis. You had people all over the world. You had Japanese people who are a very proud race of people. They were on their knees saying Black Lives Matter. So it was like, okay, this window of opportunity is open. Let us keep it open. So we decided to make the coalition, and we decided on the name of Black Theater United and use our resources. Then we decided to get a strategic plan together, all of that. And one of the things that we started off with was to help out with Stacey Abrams and her sister, Janine Abrams McLean. Anyway, they were making sure that people were registered to vote. They didn't tell people how to vote, but they were making sure that people were registering to vote. And so we said, let us help that cause as well. Because there was nothing we could do in the theater. The theater was shut down. But at least we were going to have a foundation in place when it does come back. And we had Sherilyn Eiffel come and speak to us.
Yes.
The Civil Defense Fund, she was ahead of that. So
the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, exactly, which I'm sure gave it that much more gravitas, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to go not just from a theater aspect, but from a political, social, cultural. We didn't want to tell people, being a 501c3, you can't tell people who to vote for, but you can be political in saying, get out there and have your voice heard. So that's what we wanted to do.
And so what are the pillars of Black Theater United? What are you hoping for people to take away?
Well, we call ourselves, believe it or not, the NAACP of the theatrical world.
Okay.
We just want people to be aware and to understand, because something as simple as, when you hire someone Black, especially Black women, to do a show, you have to have someone who knows how to do Black hair. And when you don't, and you don't pay attention to that small detail, that's something that you have to kind of understand. That's you need to be aware of that kind of thing. So there are other bigger issues, but definitely that is one thing. And so we want people at the table, have someone, if they're not Black, doing the hair or in charge of the hair, at least they have cut someone's hair or done someone's hair who is Black. So,
I love that you start with hair, because we know that is one of those clear dividing lines. And so there's hair, there's makeup, there are also all these jobs other than the people on stage, right? And isn't that part of your focus? Yeah,
that's part of our initiative. We want to make sure, because there's a lot of people, of course, we're definitely making changes on stage as far as diversity. Hamilton has proved that.
Absolutely.
But there are people who can't sing, dance, or act, but they love theater. And a lot of people, especially people of color, Black people, don't know that they can be in casting or don't have the opportunity. Maybe they do know, but don't feel like they could get that opportunity. So casting, press, PR, I just spoke to a woman yesterday who told me, being a Black person in the press, it's hard to see someone in the cast who is Black, who is of equal stature as their white counterpart, but they focus on the white person as opposed to, and it's like, well, what about that guy? So anyway, that's a whole nother story. But
well, and we know, I would say probably the most well-known Black publicist in theater, Irene Gandy, she's so well known because she's been the one, and there are a few more now, but just even in that realm, for the doors to be open. Mm-hmm. And Norm, I know this from when I was at Essence, so often the performers who get to be at a high level don't have any Black representation at all.
Right.
At all. I mean, it's really tough.
Yeah. And so, there's other jobs too in administration for a theater. There's people backstage. I mean, there's a handful of crew members who are Black. One woman that is in our show who her name is Karen Ford. She's the only Black woman who is doing sound design and sound engineering on Broadway. Like, everybody knows who Karen is because she's Black. So
we're talking about 2023. At this, you're talking about what you're working on today?
Right.
It does give you pause. And so Black Theater United exists to help shake it up, shake it up, but also bring folks together. It's not finger pointing. It is, how can we be better?
Yeah. So that's where it leads us to, again, we're still in the pandemic. Nobody's leaving the home. So everything's on Zoom. So we decided to have a summit. And we put together this summit for creatives, for theater owners, theater producers, union leaders, anyone that is dealing with the theatrical world. And we had a summit for 6 months where we had a main summit where we had a facilitator come in and speak, someone who knows about this equity. I think they even have a degree in this stuff. And they came in and they talked about it. And from that, we broke off into the different rooms. The union people went here, the producers went here, the musicians went here. And through that, we said, speak your mind. If you are adverse to something, tell us, let us know. And then we will say that could be a trigger in this particular kind of conversation or, scenario. So through that 6 months, we brought all of our notes back together and we created the New Deal. And the New Deal it's not the Constitution of the United States, but it is something that's documented. Not everybody agreed on everything, but for the most part, we had most of the people say yes. Most people said yes to a lot of it and didn't like one section. But whatever the case may be, the conversation is still there. So all it is basically is holding people accountable, holding themselves accountable and holding other people accountable. Are you doing this? Are you making sure that person's safe? Are you making sure that they are not saying certain things? That kind of thing. So,
And I remember when Broadway reopened, because with the pandemic, everything shut down. Broadway shut down for a long time.
Right.
Broadway, people lost their jobs. They couldn't afford to go buy that ticket to go to Broadway, and they were afraid to sit next to folks.
Right.
When Broadway reopened, there were 7 plays written by Black playwrights that reopened Broadway. And there were all kinds of thoughts about that. Why are you putting the Black folks out there to reopen? How is that going to work? Musicals do better than plays. All the arguments back and forth, but it was powerful, Norm. That was a really incredible thing. How did you feel about that?
Well, gosh, I had mixed feelings about it because I was part of one of those shows, Chicken and Biscuits.
Yes.
We had such a great time with that show. I was grateful.
Excellent.
Yeah, it was. I hope it comes back. Whether I'm in it or not, I hope it comes back because Douglas Lyons wrote this amazing piece. But I was torn because, yes, I was happy to work again. I was happy that the Broadway was open again, but I just didn't want it to be like, well, we gave you a chance.
Yeah, that was the thing.
We gave you a chance, but no one was coming because, opening night, we were full, but they papered the house. That next day, it was less than half of the theater. And it kept being like that. And, we knew, I guess they knew it was going to be like that. Because even Wicked was not selling that well, but they still, they're such a powerhouse, they still could maintain. I just hope that that's not going to be the attitude. It's like, well, we gave you a chance. I think, like right now, what's the show that's on Broadway? Lala's, the Braiding House, the House of Braiding.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Something like that. It's the round. MCC has put it on. Manhattan Theater Club. That's right. MTC. Yeah.
What people were worried about then, and I remember I went to every one of those places. I'm like, I'm going. I'm wearing my mask. I'm going because I wanted to make a difference. And what you're talking about became the thing that are we going to be the tokens? Are we going to be put out to slaughter? It almost feels like, well, we gave you a chance. We don't know yet. The jury's out on this, right? But hopefully Black Theater United is helping in that regard, to hold people's feet to the fire so that it can't be, we did it once, but, now it's over, right? Let me remind folks, this is Dream Leapers with Harriet Cole. We are talking to Norm Lewis. Right now, we're talking about Black Theater United, a very important group that was founded during the pandemic, responding to all the things that we were seeing and feeling. but with the intention to unite Broadway and to make it more inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
And the effort is underway, hopefully in a more powerful way than it was, more, let's say, more persistent, more consistent way than it was in the future. We've had these spurts all through the years. You know, there's been a project here and there. Hopefully, as you said, having the OGs be part of this is going to, you know, you have people who folks know and respect. That helps the people coming up to believe that there's a chance for them, even though you say, what's the performance that you're doing now that you said, that what are you working on right now?
Well, I'm doing a lot of concerts, and you know, thank God. Let's see, the next one will be, gosh, I have to go to North Carolina, I have to go to St. Louis, I have to go to Arizona. But I think the main one that hopefully people can come to here in New York is I'll be at Carnegie Hall December 22nd and 23rd for a Christmas show with the New York Wow. So I'm excited about that.
That's very exciting. And so then we have on October 30th, the inaugural gala, right?
Yes.
For Black Theater United. Tell us about that event. It sounds so exciting. What's going to happen?
Yeah, we have been working so hard on this one. You know, last year we were going to have another event. We were going to have our gala last year, but we had to pivot. There were some things that were kind of just going awry just because costs kept getting more and more and more of the venue that we had chosen. And also, luckily, we didn't have it because we were going to have an outdoor concert. And that particular night, it rained like cats and dogs, and it was so cold. Yeah, it was. God said, no, you have to pivot, wait till next year. So we've been planning this. We're at the Ziegfeld on 54th Street between 6th and 7th. I think that's what it is. And obviously, the people that we have in our organization, our board members, our founders are fantastic. Vanessa Williams, Brian Stokes-Mitchell, Audrey McDonald, LaShance, myself, Michael McElroy. So it's a whole plethora of us that are in there. So you're going to get the presence of those people. But then we have Josh Groban, who's also coming. And we have other people. Jose Lana is going to come and present. I'm trying to think of all the presenters that we have, but I think Judith Light is going to be there. But we're honoring Sam and LaTanya Jackson. We're also honoring Common. Common made, you know, his theatrical debut, I think, here in New York just recently. So we want to introduce him and welcome him into the fold. And he's from a whole nother genre. So hopefully he'll be doing more of that. We're honoring Candy Burris, who has now been producing, I want to say at least 3 shows. She might be doing more, but definitely the one that's coming in right now is The Wiz. And
which is huge.
Yeah, which is going to be fantastic, I hear. And so, and a few other people that are in the theatrical world that you might not know their names, but so we're having those honorees come in, but we're also having auction items that are going to hopefully raise a lot of money. I think there's one where John and Patrick McEnroe will teach you how to play tennis. So it's things like that. So we want to give the entertainment value, but we also want to show that what we're doing is going towards a good cause. Like we're having mentor and mentee programs where we invite people who have been in high school, who are high schoolers, also people who are college age, and also people who are adults who are looking to get into this industry. And we're having internships where they can go in and learn how to do press, learn how to do casting, all of that. And in fact, from our first program a couple of years ago, we had someone who was so good that the company she was working with was like, can we hire her? And so
good.
Those opportunities are
and that's what we want to have happen. That's part of why you exist, right? So where can people go to learn more about Black Theater United?
You go to Black Theater United. Now you have to spell it with R-E instead of E-R at the end, blacktheaterunited.com.
Excellent. Well, it has been a pleasure to talk to you, Norm Lewis. Congratulations on all that you have done in your career. And thank you and the folks who you have been working with to create Black Theater United. It sounds really awesome. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to talk to you. See you on October 30th.
All right.
All right. Take care. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into Dream Leapers with Harriet Cole. You want to learn more about Black Theater United, go to Black Theater United, THEATRE United.com, and their event, October 30th. Don't miss it. Until next time, have a great day and make it count.